Thanks, Chair, and thanks to all the organisations. Quick fire. I have a couple of quick fire questions. I heard the INFHA said 60k. I think Macra said 60k in the ICSA. The IFA and the ICMSA. What do you think the top line figure should be on their cap?
If I could come in there, because I was actually the first person to put a figure on it, I think today, 60,000.
Maybe I missed it. Sorry.
Maybe it is 60,000.
Okay, that's grand.
No frills, very plain. Yeah.
And Tim.
Yeah, sure, Deputy. We're very clear now. We're saying 60,000, but I mean we have to have an allowance there for farm labour as well. I mean,
can I ask a question on that? If I run a business, I either take on a person or I don't. If I'm getting bigger, the way I'll have a farm labour, right? Or if I do contracting, if I need someone wrapping, I have to take them on because I have to work for them. Why would you be including the farm labour?
Well, sure, in all fairness, Deputy, in any business, I mean, if you can't get allowance for the labour and the time you put into it, sure, I mean, it's not a business.
Well, you get an allowance through your tax and all that.
But Deputy, this is about viability. I mean, every farmer.
But if you can afford to pay someone else,
every farmer deserves to make a living and deserves a living wage.
I'm talking about the farmers themselves, but they deserve to make a living. There's no one disputing that. But if you're talking about another labour unit along with that, are you?
Yeah, and family farm labour units as well. Like most farms, as you know.
Yeah, well, I don't actually agree with that part, but we'll agree to differ. On Macra, John, you talked about that you agreed with the 60,000, but the only problem is at the moment you are aware that young farmers and a lot of them, in fairness, are happy enough. Can go only to 90 hectares and get 22.5 plus the top up, it brings them to about 27.5 or 28. Where does the 60 come in your side of it?
Thanks, Michael. I suppose the 60 comes in from a young farmer who's taken over an established enterprise, that limit is impacting there. And I suppose the point in terms of the capping, from our point of view, currently as it is, you have many enterprises who are a number of family farm members who are currently farming, be that brothers or sisters together with parents and oftentimes grandparents, and essentially putting a cap on that right now as a blunt instrument without allowing for that intergenerational piece. So you can potentially have 3 generations working on the farm without having provisions for that, Michael. At this moment in time, we feel that could have a hugely negative impact on the potential for more than one family member, both young and older, to continue farming, thus placing the farm both at the viability risk, but also placing it at risk in terms of the breakdown of the farm structure, the viability of the farm, and whether or not some individuals within the farming enterprise have to separate out to alternative practices.
Right.
So
I presume my understanding, we were talking to the department this morning, and it's a thing, I know you all have followed up, but Macra would have as well. The Forgotten Farmer, they have said that there's a commitment in the programme for government, and they have spoke this morning that they intend to be sorting out the Forgotten Farmer, just as a note of interest. One question for you all. Has any of you gone with, say, a simple piece of paper to every one of your members, posted it out to them and said, fill that? Which would you rather, the way that you get a good feel for what's going on?
I might ask Mr. Punch there, he's looking to come in there for a while.
Well, the whole lot of them I'm asking.
Okay.
Thanks, Chairman. Just maybe to deal with a few of the points here. First of all, yeah, we said a 60,000 cap. And it's not that we like caps, but it is that the average payment is 6,000 or is 9,000 per farmer. And in a world where we cannot even pay a living wage to the average farmer, it is illogical in our view that if you give one farmer 60,000, you would also give that farmer extra money to hire in labour as well. The marketplace and the taxation system have got to cover the cost of hired in labour. In terms of the young farmers, look, we've always supported the National Reserve and the 25% top up. We would say that there needs to be consideration given to young farmers who do not want to get into dairying. Like, dairying is a logical and a good choice for some young farmers, but for a lot of our members, they're young folk getting into farming now simply will not, because of fragmented holdings, land quality, or the sheer, risk of investing hundreds of thousands in new milking facilities. They should be given options to farm in sucklers or sheep or tillage as an alternative to the high capital investment in dairying. So that's where we want to see, for example, an agri-environment scheme that's really attractive to young people starting out and can pay up to 15,000, for example. In terms of the definition of the genuine farmer, we've said it clearly that there must be an upper limit on the amount of years you can lease out your entitlements. We accept that people will lease out entitlements in the short term because of illness or some issues like that, and there are people who need to lease in entitlements. But prolonged, and by that we mean for 7 years and more, leasing out of entitlements has got to stop. And if nothing else happens, we need to form, an agreed position on this around this and other tables. In terms also of the genuine farmer, we've said the ANC minimum stocking rate should apply and the donkeys should be ruled out. In terms of getting our members' views, we've asked them through various formats. We're using, for example, WhatsApp and messaging now for people to give their feedback on various issues. And obviously that's more of a thing now with the COVID, but we hope also to go back to a real engagement around the table with people as well. And I would say that in general, the CRIS and the convergence and all of these issues are, of course, substantially linked to the EU looking for farmers to do more and more for less and less. But there's a 750 billion NGEU piece which was agreed as part of the EU budget negotiations. 750 billion. The farming sector and the natural resources sector got a mere 17.5 billion out of that, for all of Europe. 10 billion of it for just transition, 7.5 as a top up to essentially rural development funding. We think that's inadequate, and we think Ireland's share of it is smaller still. So if we come back to these contentious issues, we've got to get more money into the budget. The carbon 1.5 billion that was a programme for government agreement needs to be extra money over and above the co-financing obligation that will be part of Pillar 2. We need to make sure also that we are fighting as part of this negotiation. Really, whether the eco scheme is 25% or 30% is really moving the deck chairs and playing around with figures. The issue is we need to get more money into the schemes. And if we want CRIS, we need more money to top that up. If we want to have a fairer cap, we need more money for the farmers who are most vulnerable to the current convergence model, and that in our view is cattle farmers, suckler farmers, sheep farmers and tillage farmers. They're the people who need more money out of this, and we got to find a way of doing that quickly.
Okay.
Question that the rest of them can ask it. The other thing, I think we have to devise a system where what I call the term the armchair farmer, that cannot be condoned going forward, because you have to be farming to be basically able to get payments. I think that, and I've said it earlier to the department, I remember asking a question in the Dáil a couple of years ago when Brexit was in full swing, and the Taoiseach stated that the Irish government would bring up if there was a deficit. I think that we need to focus on that in the line of getting more money, as Eddie has talked about, into the pot. To be honest about it, I think, you need a stocking rate, but someone mentioned it earlier. In fairness to any minister, under cap, you cannot. It was spoke about earlier. I think one of the farming organisations says how you need a minimum stock rate. Under cap, you can't bring in, because of some world trade agreement or rules, you cannot bring it in. Yes, under ANC they have it in, but they cannot do that under cap. But we have to make sure that where there is, land being leased and payments going with them, and someone sitting down and looking at the farmer busting themselves outside the door. This type of stuff has to come to an end, and that the farmer that's farming, I don't care whether they're part-time farming or full-time farming, they are looked after, because if we don't do that, we will not continue having farmers. And in the line of young farmers as well, we need to basically help them, encourage them as much as possible going forward. But my honest opinion, and I'll be very clear, is that I think we have to go down the road of convergence, because I think we have to try and divide the money out as best as possible. And yeah, there will be some people affected, but we need to bring in systems that will help them. But my honest opinion, and I'll be straight with you, over 50,000, I think 1,000 a week. After that, if we done that and got every farmer, especially the family farms, up to a viable type of an income. There was a thing talked earlier on at 35 hectares. The average single payment is 32 hectares, is my understanding at the moment. And there are farmers that have missed out on monies. You won't get paid for what you done 20 years ago as a contractor. Whatever baling you done last year, you're not going to get it this year, only that you have to go out and fight for it. And I think we need to make sure that all farmers, that we look after them as best as possible. But there is, for the very top, like what has gone on, and I know it's not many, what has come out in the media about 245 and 145 and all of that, it's just inflating the whole situation. I know that that's just 10 photoshops or pictures taken of 10 different people. It's not going to make anyone at the bottom any richer, but I do think that all that has to be cut out, because it's not portraying it in a good manner.
Okay. Mr. Connan, looking at getting that.
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. And look, Deputy Fitzmaurice, and I suppose one of the questions you asked there, did we send a piece of paper out to our members? Well, all I can say is we've had numerous consultation with our members during COVID, and it has been difficult, but we had 2 rounds of regional meetings, and we came out with 6 key objectives in this CAP reform. And they were based on listening to our members on the ground. And one of the areas you brought up there was the Armchair Farmer. And actually, would you believe it, that was one of the key issues that was coming up when we were doing the meetings up and down the country. And we did, as I said, I did explain that earlier on. So we have in our objectives, we have an objective in there on dealing with the Armchair Farmer, dealing with the long-term leasing. So I mean that it needs to go back in. There needs to be a trading system around that. And I absolutely agree with you. We can't afford any leakage out of this reform, because what you're saying there is right. The budget has been decreasing, and this is the ultimate problem here. But I think what we need to do here as well, with the scarce resources we have, we need to ensure to go in the right direction. What I'm talking about here is targeted payments. And we've been working on this for quite a while. We already have a targeted payment for the suckler cow and the ewe, and we'll have to continue on that. Absolutely, we have more funding coming into this. Remember now that the national government, a minimum, have to co-fund up to 57%, and we'll have to ensure that happens. That there's not a mix here with the 1.5 billion in the carbon tax. That's absolutely essential, because the 2 things need to happen here is we have to have a proper environmental scheme, and the money now is ring fenced for that, and we can use more of the targeted payments in the Pillar 2 for a proper payment or for that suckler cow and for the sheep. No, that's the direction we need to go here now, and keep the money with the people that are doing the work. I couldn't agree more with that.